All right. Episode number 7. Excuse me. Area 519 talks. Doing another one by myself. I'm actually pretty excited about this one. Uh, I am going to talk about my experience that I had the other day with dimethyltryptamine, with DMT. If anybody doesn't know what DMT is, it is dimethyltryptamine. It is the most powerful, most potent psychedelic there is on the planet, to my knowledge. Um, I did quite a bit of research on it. I first heard about it from the Joe Rogan podcast. Anybody that listens to Joe uh, knows that he's huge on DMT. He loves to talk about DMT. He said many guests on, and they talk about their experiences on DMT, and I found it absolutely fascinating. Just their stories and them explaining what an experience is like with DMT. Um, Crazy visuals and so on and so forth. And they explained about almost where you leave this planet, where like your spirit or your soul leaves your body, and you get ushered into like whole nother dimensions and other galaxies, and you're talking to entities and communicating with other entities in a whole nother dimension, and just crazy visuals and bright colors and geometrical shapes and patterns, and I was found it so fascinating. So I started doing research, and I started watching documentaries on DMT and trip reports on DMT. I'm not going to get you know too depth into my whole story of how I got into it and where I found it and so on and so forth. But me and a friend did it. We went to Toronto with in a, with somebody like there was a girl down there, and she specializes. She makes it. Um, and she admitted, like, she gives you the DMT. Um, she's almost like a shaman of some sort. So she's like a spiritual, like she guides you through like a spiritual journey. Like this isn't like a recreational. Like this is not a party drug. This isn't something where you get around with a bunch of buddies and be like, "Hey, let's do some DMT." Like, no, DMT needs to be. It's a serious thing. Like it's a whole spiritual journey. Um, like you need to be in a safe, comfortable spot when you do it. You need to be around people that you trust and that you feel safe around. So anyway, so me and a buddy went to Toronto. The buddy that I went with, he's done this before. He's experimented with DMT before with this same girl. So he kind of set it all up. So we went to Toronto, and I had my appointment first because she wanted to spend some time with me to get to know me, have a build a comfort and a trust. And so she started off, and she prepared a tea of some sort. I'm not even going to try to remember what any of this stuff is called. And we just had a conversation. We talked. She asked questions about me, a little bit about my background, so on and so forth. What was my intention? Like, why did I come here? What's the reason for me um, to do this? So I explained to her, why I wanted to do it, and so on and so forth. And then we did some deep breathing exercises, just kind of like a mental preparation for this um, for this journey that I'm about to go on. And there was some other stuff involved. I'm not going to get too deep into the the preparation, but it was very comforting. It was very soothing. I felt that I was in a very, very safe place. You know, I had complete trust in this person. And so when it was actually time to do this, we called in my other buddy. So he came in, and so you know he was witnessing my experience. So I was pretty nervous, leading up to this because I kind of knew what I was gonna expect, but at the same time I didn't really know what to expect going into this. So I felt very calm. I felt very relaxed. And then it was like now, it's like it's go time. Like I'm ready to smoke this psychedelic. And so she explained to me how to do it, how it's administered, and so on. And she walked me through it. And it was like a cool looking glass pipe. And she explained that I had to do 3 big, long inhalations off of this pipe. So she held the pipe in one hand in a lighter in the other, and then I held the tip of the pipe, and then she got the lighter going underneath the bowl or whatever, and you could see this whole glass pipe just fill up with smoke. And she's like, "Okay, go." So I just start like inhaling, like just. And she's like, "Okay, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going until I completely cleared the chamber in the pipe." And she actually, afterwards, after it was all said and done, she had complimented me on the capacity of my lungs. She said I had a set of Michael Phelps lungs, I guess. Most people aren't able to completely clear the whole chamber in the pipe with one whole inhalation. But anyway, I guess I have a good lung capacity. So I did cleared the whole chamber in the pipe, and then I had to hold it, and then she counted down from 10, and then after 10 seconds, exhale. So I'm like, all right, still feel pretty good. I still feel normal. So it was okay. Second one, start inhaling, inhaling. She's like, okay, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. It's like just that last little cleared the chamber in the pipe. She counted down from 10. She got to 0. I exhaled, and this is where shit started happening. I exhaled the second round of 3, and then it was just like, oh, you could feel it coming on, and it was coming on super fast. And I still had to do one more whole big long inhalation and hold it for 10. So she's like, okay. So she's got the lighter going, and I'm like, and she's tapping me on the knee because I'm starting to take off at this point. She's like, okay, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I cleared the chamber the last time. And as she's counting down from 10, I remember I was looking down at her coffee table, and she had like a placemat. My cell phone was sitting on the coffee table. There was a few other little things on the coffee table. And as I'm like taking in that third one, and as she was counting down, everything that I was looking at started to pixelate in front of me. Excuse me. My phone, the placemat, the table itself, everything started to pixelate and started to morph into one. And I remember I looked at her, and she had long hair, and her whole face, her body, everything just started to pixelate, and she morphed into the background, and everything in the background all pixelated, it all morphed into one thing. So I exhaled out the third one, and before we had started, she gave me a set of like the little things you put over your eyes, like to sleep at night to block the light out. So she said, as soon as you exhale on the third one, I'll just slide those down, and then you just lean back into the couch. So I'd exhaled the third one. She pulled the blinders back or down over my eyes. I just kind of leaned back into the couch, and right away, like right off the hop. Uh, Geometrical shapes and patterns. It was almost like a kaleidoscope of these beautiful shapes and patterns. Uh, Words. There's no words in the English language to even describe the visuals. And these weren't even crazy visuals. Like the crazy shit hadn't even come yet. And I remember just watching these beautiful geometric shapes and patterns and this whole kaleidoscope of just designs and light and patterns. And I remember I had a smile on my face, and I almost wanted to start laughing because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Um, but I still had a sense of self. I still knew who I was. I still knew where I was. I knew that I had smoked DMT and that this was all part of the process. And then the next thing I remember is everything changed and everything got super, super intense. The visuals got extremely intense. Um, I I got very anxious and I was not panic, but it was so overwhelming and it had come on so fast, like the second set of visuals. I remember I was basically giving myself a pep talk and I was like, okay, dude, like just relax. Like just relax. Don't even try to fight this. Don't even try to resist it. Just go with it. Just let it go. Just let go and let the DMT take you to wherever it wants to take you. Don't try to resist it because if you resist it, it's going to get bad. You have to let it go. And I remember saying to myself, I was like, dude, even if you wanted this to stop, you can't stop this even if you wanted to. You're along for the ride, so you might as well just let it go and go with it. So I did. I was just like, all right, I'm just going to go with it. I'm not even going to fight it. And I remember I let out, I remember I exhaled, and next thing I know, like I was like gone. Like I wasn't a person anymore. Sheldon didn't exist anymore. This this life, this consciousness, this reality that we know as life did not exist. I was in a completely different realm, a completely different dimension. Um, I'm not even going to try to explain the things that I saw, the visions that I had, the colors. Um, I tried to explain this to some other people earlier about like just imagine the most expensive top of the line high definition television that money could buy and then like times that by like 100. That's how high definition, how crisp, how clear everything is. The colors are so bright, they're so vibrant. You can't even describe the brightness of the colors and how sharp and crisp everything is. But everything's happening so fast. It's impossible to remember everything that happens in the trip because everything is just coming at you at warp speed. But I remember a point in the experience where I got very confused. Um, I didn't know where I was, and I just remember all these images were just going like boo, 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 and they were coming, and they were changing so rapidly. All these different images and sceneries were just like flashing by me, and I'm like, where am I? Where am I? I was so confused. I had no idea what was going on, and and then the next thing that I really can have a decent recollection of is I remember coming back. I remember getting this sensation. It was just like, okay, I'm back in my body. Okay, I know where I am. I'm a human being. I know that I'm Sheldon. I know that I've smoked DMT and that this is just a DMT experience. So I remember slowly coming back, and there was still, a little bit of visuals going on, and then I was just like, it's like, okay, I'm back. So I lifted up the little blindfold or the blinders off, and I looked over and I seen her there, and I looked over my other buddy, he was sitting there, and the first thing I said, first question was like, how long was I gone for? And she was like, 20 minutes. I was like, 20 minutes. I thought that was pretty crazy because most DMT trip reports that I listened to were only like 10 minutes, like 15 minutes was a pretty long trip. And the fact that I was gone for 20, I was just completely blew me away. Um, and she had said something about that, your body obviously metabolizes this different than most people for it to prolong into to a 20-minute trip. So we talked about it, and I kind of explained what I just explained to you guys. And so yeah, we talked about it. We just kind of relaxing, and she said, like, do you want to do another one? Do you want to go deeper into this? And I was just like, yes. I felt so comfortable. I was like, I definitely, let's do it. Let's do it again, because that's kind of was part of the whole package anyway. Was two two DMT sessions if you so choose to take the second one if you wanted to go deeper. And I was like, yeah, I came 2.5 hours. I didn't come here to fuck around. Like, let's do this. So she's okay. I'll go get the pipe ready. So she loaded it up for the second one, and so she came back and she's like, okay, you're ready. You're ready. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So it was the exact same procedure. 3 big inhalations, same thing. Count down from 10. Exhale, and the whole takeoff process was exactly the same. I second inhalation, I exhaled, and then as I'm inhaling the third one, same thing, the exact same thing. Everything started to pixelate, everything started morphing, and so on and so forth. Exhaled the third tote. She pulled the blinders down. I eased back into the couch, but this time it was way different. Um, she never said this, but I'm just, from the experience, I'm just assuming that she upped the dose quite a bit. Because I guess, I did the first one and I took it like I handled it like a champ. I was like, yeah. So she was like, okay, let's give him a little bit more so he can get even deeper into this. So yeah, as she pulled the blindfold down and I leaned and I laid back into the couch, it was just boom, like full on crazy, insane visuals, like in your face. Like, if I had the experience that I experienced in my second trip, if that had happened in my first trip, there's a pretty good chance I probably wouldn't have done the second one. That's another reason why I think the dose was significantly bigger for the second one, because yeah, the second she pulled the blinders down and I leaned to the couch, it was just full on insane, crazy, intense visuals. There was so much shit going on and everything was coming at me at such a speed. Like, it was crazy, crazy intense. But this is the most profound thing out of both DMT experiences I had that night. As this intensity and the visuals were so crazy, I had this knowing, this understanding, this absolute, um, that I had been there before. everything I was seeing was so familiar to me. It was like I've been here before. I've been here so many times. It was like, like when you have deja vu. It was like deja vu, but like times 1,000. It was like, I have been in this place before. I have seen everything like this before. It was so familiar to me. And that gave me a sense of comfort that I knew that I was okay. I knew that I was in a safe place because I had been here so many times before. And it was such a crazy feeling just knowing that, like absolutely so sure of that. And I remember there was so much pink, a lot of pink, bright pink lights in visuals that had a lot of pink in it. I remember that. I'm not even going to try to explain what the visuals look like. I can still remember some of them in my head right now, but to try to explain it is absolutely impossible to do. And I remember it was super intense, super crazy, and wasn't a voice, but there was this. I felt that there was something communicating to me, not verbally, like basic, almost like telepathically, but I just felt this sense that something was telling me is you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. And it was weird because I didn't see any entities. And I've heard many trip reports where people had talked about actually communicating with different entities and almost like aliens of some sort. But I don't remember seeing any entities, but I do remember that knowing of something communicating to me telepathically, that telling me it's okay, it's okay, like this is okay. And the next thing that I really remember once again was coming, yeah. And so yeah, I forgot to mention this. So as she closed the sorry, I got shit in my eye or something. But when she put the blinders down on the second one, when I said the crazy visuals came in like right away, right off the hop, my sense of self was gone. I was no longer a human being. I was no longer Sheldon. Like I said, before, this consciousness and this, what we know, like this consciousness that we know is what we call it. Like it was gone. Like I wasn't a person. There was no such thing as Sheldon. I was just a consciousness and just an energy in another dimension. But that was just like boom, right away. On the first trip, it was maybe halfway through the trip where I lost that sense of self. But this was just right off the hop. 10 seconds into this second DMT trip, I was dead to self. There was no self. I was just a consciousness and an energy in another dimension. So I did forget to mention that. It was instantly right away. I was no longer a human being. I had no recollection of ever being a human being. I had no recollection of, I took a drug and that's what got me here. No, I just existed and was experiencing and witnessing everything that was going on in this other dimension. It's super hard to understand, and you would have to experience it for yourself to really understand what it is I'm talking about. But it is absolutely incredible to, yeah, you're not human, you've never been human, there's no such thing as humans, you're just an energy and a consciousness that is existing in a completely different dimension. And I could have been in multiple dimensions during that DMT trip, but like I said, because everything's happening so fast and everything's so intense and everything's whizzing by you at 1,000 miles an hour, it's impossible to really remember everything. So as I felt myself, I was slowly coming back, and then I was just like, oh, okay, okay, I'm a human. Same thing, you know, I'm a human being. I'm Sheldon. Okay, I know where I am. I know that I smoke DMT. I know everything's cool. And in a few more minutes, everything's going to be normal again. So I knew I was 75% back, but there was still some really cool visuals going on, and it was very peaceful because the intensity was gone. Everything had slowed down significantly, so it was very calming and very soothing and very relaxed because I knew I was back. And I remember I spoke. I still had the blindfold on, the blinders down. I knew everything. I knew where I was. I knew who I was. So I said, okay, I'm back now, but there's some really cool stuff still happening. So I'm just gonna relax, and I'm just gonna ride this out until the end. And I heard her say, okay, that, you know, take your time. So I just laid back and I just observed the visuals, and everything just slowly kind of to slow down, and everything kind of slowly started to fade away. And so I remember I leaned forward, I lifted up the little blinders up onto my forehead, and I looked over at her, and she was there, and I looked over at my buddy Lance, and Lance was there. And but everything was still kind of still had a movement to it. I remember looking down at the table and seeing my cell phone and everything else that was on the table, and everything was still had that little bit of movement, a little bit of a wave to it. I remember looking up and looking at the pictures on the wall, and the pictures were still slowly, just still had a bit of movement to it. You know, and I looked at her, and you know, she was still moving. I looked kind of like looked over at Lance, and then I just stayed still. I didn't even say anything. And you know, and then it was really it was so cool as I'm sitting there, and you're just watching everything's getting slower and slower and slower until it's just like, okay, now I'm 100%, everything's normal again. And that was super cool, just how that it came on just like boom, like being shot out of a rocket into a whole other dimension. Like how it just escalated so fast, so intense, and then how it just slowly brought me back down like a feather, and just kind of easily, just gently ease me back into my body and back into this consciousness. It was so incredible. It was so profound. Um, you can go on YouTube and listen to anybody's trip report, and they can't. They'll all say, like, there's just no words to describe it. You know, we can try to pull words out that we know to best describe the experience, but it really is impossible. You cannot. You have to experience it for yourself to really understand what an experience with DMT is like. Um, my buddy Lance, he did his experience. I'm not even, you know, that was his trip, that was his experience. It's not my business to try to explain what he experienced, but I did. He had a very profound experience as well. His was significantly, there was a lot of similarities, but his was very much different than mine. And I will absolutely at some point in the future do it again. Um, Probably not anytime soon, but I feel that I could definitely do it again, and maybe even get a little bit deeper yet, and have a deeper, an even more deeper experience with it than what this one was. And this one was, especially the second one, was super crazy profound. But I will definitely, like 100%, experiment with DMT again, and absolutely I will go to the same place. Um, to this girl's place. She's very professional about it. She genuinely she has a genuine love for everybody, and she really takes care of you. So I will definitely go that route again. Um, One thing I would kind of recommend if doing DMT is something that you're considering, or something that you may consider in the future. If I could go back and do it differently, I probably wouldn't have listened to as many trip reports on YouTube as I did. Um, like, everybody's trips are different. There's a lot of similarities. Like, you're pretty much always, for the most part, going to see geometrical shapes and patterns and stuff like that. Crazy visuals, bright light, so on and so forth. That's common. Like, that's going to happen 100% of the time. But I wouldn't listen to all these trip reports, because it can kind of set you up for an expectation that may or may not happen. Like, I heard so many stories about, communicating with entities and machine elves and alien like creatures of some sort. And I was like, oh, that's going to be cool. And I was almost expecting to have an experience like that, and I didn't experience that to my knowledge. I don't remember communicating with aliens or entities or anything, other than when I felt that something telling me that it's okay, it's okay. Other than that, I didn't actually physically see any entities. Um, so I was and it kind of set me up. It kind of, like, hearing those trip reports, I figured, okay, I'm going to be talking to aliens and entities and so on and so forth. So in a way, when I came back, there was like that little bit of disappointment that I didn't experience that. But with like, this may sound crazy, or may sound absurd, but I don't really care what anybody thinks. Um, the DMT it is a plant medicine. It's 100%. It comes from a plant. This isn't a chemical that's whipped up in a lab. Like, this is extracted. Like, this is plant medicine. It's not chemical. And if you do any research or watch any documentaries about shamanism and with plant medicine, these shamans will tell you that the plants actually communicate with them. And I don't find that bizarre at all now. Um, but the DMT knows exactly what it's going to do. The DMT has a purpose. The DMT knows the journey that it's. I believe that journey is already predetermined by the plant. And if the medicine, you know knew that this is the experience that he needs to have for a breakthrough, he needs to see machine elves and aliens and entities, then that's what I would have experienced. But my experience, I'm completely convinced that I experienced what I had to experience. It had its way with me, and what needed to be done was done. And in the future, when I do this again at some point in the future, maybe I will, have an experience with different entities and so on and so forth, and have an even more profound trip. I don't know. Uh, I think it'd be super cool to have an experience where I'm communicating with different entities and machine elves and stuff like that. Um, Machine elves is a term that I've heard other people use. Um, a lot of people have talked about having very similar experiences with the same, and the way they describe these entities that they had been communicating with. Like I said, you can't really, there's no real words to describe what you see, but the best words that they could come with to describe it was almost like machine elves. So that's why I'm using machine elves. Joe Rogan's even used that term, machine elves, and if you know anything about psychedelics, you may have heard of Terence McKenna. He was a huge, huge, huge advocate for psychedelics, and he always spoke about machine elves in his DMT experiences. Hope maybe someday I'll experience these machine elves and entities, but anyway, I've been rambling on for 35 minutes here about my DMT experience, but yeah, it was absolutely profound to say the least. DMT is definitely not for everybody. It's extremely potent. Yeah, it's not for everybody. And not everybody should take it or experiment with it. I knew for absolute certain that I was ready. Um, and I'm absolutely 100% super happy that I did it. And definitely look forward to um, having more experiences with it in the future. So I'm going to cut it short tonight. I'm going to shut her down at about 36 minutes. So that's my DMT experience, my dimethyltryptamine. Uh, I hope you enjoyed my breakdown of my experience. Um, so Area 519 Talks, episode 7 until episode 8. I'll see you all later.